praise be a weapon that silences the enemy. Let praise be a weapon that conquers all anxiety. Let it rise. Let praise arise. We sing your name in the dark and it changes everything. We sing with all we are and we claim your victory. Let it rise. Let praise arise. Come on! We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. They cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side, forever lifted high. With all creation cry, God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, let faith be the song that overcomes the raging sea. Let faith be the song that calms the storm inside of me. Let it rise. Let faith arise. We sing your name in the dark and it changes everything. We sing with all we are and we claim your victory. Let it rise. Let praise arise. Come on! We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. They cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side, forever lift him high. With all creation cry, God, we praise. Every voice, whoa, we praise you. Whoa, we praise you. Let's put our hands together. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you, we praise you. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side, forever lift him high. With all creation cry, God, we praise. Every voice, whoa, we praise you. Whoa, we praise you. Whoa, we praise you. Whoa, we praise you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam, and I'm so excited to be here. I hope you got some donuts. They're super good. But as we continue worshiping this morning, I just want to encourage everyone to posture our hearts, our eyes, and our hands up to God. Thousand stories around me. Think you're like a tender whisper around me. In dead of night and
You might have came in today a little down, maybe a little downtrodden, maybe feeling like you're alone, or that, I don't know, maybe somebody this week betrayed your trust or didn't follow through or lied to you. And it begins to build a narrative in our head about I'm just either not worthy, people don't respect me, what's going on in my life? I don't know if that speaks to you, but that happens to me often. And then I have to just sit back and reflect on a song like this where we remember that Jesus himself is our champion, that he is with us, that he goes before us, and that he wants to bring us life and bring us purpose, and that he has chosen you for certain things in your life. Did you know that there's nobody else like you? Seriously, you are an original. You're original. You're one of a kind. And when you begin to embrace it, that identity comes from being created in the image of God. It begins to change everything. Maybe you're a church person. You've heard this a lot. It doesn't have any power. It doesn't have any more strength in your life. And I would just challenge you today to just take a moment. We're going to pray together and just relinquish some control that you might have in your life that you've been unwilling to give to God. But because he wants to do things in and through you that you can't even ask for or imagine. Amen? Let's pray together to that end. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time of worship and reflection where we can hopefully begin to just let our guard down and begin to even consider, oh my gosh, are you really all these things? Do you really have a plan for my life and for my future? Are you really for me because the world seems against me? God, are you really all of these things that I've heard might be true? Are you really faithful? Are you really going to come through? Do you really go before me and fight my battles? And God, I just want to stand here as someone who has experienced those doubts and continues to, but also I want to say that I just want to surrender a greater part of my heart to you this morning. So God, would you just begin to work in our lives and the things that we might be holding on to, whether that might be regret, maybe that might be our past, maybe it just might be a sin that we keep tripping up, an addiction that we keep falling back into. God, we know that there's help and there's healing for that, and that comes by just admitting that we're broken people and that we need you, God. But it doesn't end there, because you are the God of hope. You are the God of restoration. You are the God of healing. You are the one that mends broken relationships. So God, we stand firm on that, and we just say, first and foremost, we can't do anything without your power. We can't do anything without your love. And so God, we just say, would you give us a greater understanding of your goodness in our lives? That the things that we might not see you're doing, you are working all things together for those who love you and are called to your purposes. And we thank you for that today. Jesus, thank you for the sacrifice that you made. Thank you for coming to earth, living perfectly, giving everything, giving of yourself, even to the point of death. We acknowledge that today. We might have heard it a lot, but we acknowledge just the power that comes with that. Thank you for doing that on our behalf, doing what we couldn't do, and then it didn't end there. So we thank you for being raised from the dead by the power of the Holy Spirit. And now, God, we have that same power within us as your followers. You've called us a son, you've called us a daughter, and we want to live into that identity today. We thank you for that, God. I pray those who are feeling downtrodden, that they would feel hopeful. Those that are feeling broken, know that you're mending them. We love you, Jesus. We thank you for your goodness to us. It's in your precious name. Everyone say with me, amen, amen. Hey, we are so glad that you're here. Turn to your neighbor, tell him, man, you're beautiful. Have a seat. Well, like I mentioned, it's so great to have you here with us. Welcome. My name is Nathan. This is my friend Mason. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good.
Good, man. Glad to see you. Glad you're all here with us. Hey, every week, we just want to say, again, thanks for being here. And then you probably grabbed a program on your way in, and we just like to highlight that and ask that you grab the card that's in there and begin filling that out. But kind of like, Mason, what's the purpose behind the card?
Yeah, well, there's a few. I would love if you would pull this out. It says the card right on it. You can't miss it. Just like we did last week, we're looking for one card in the room that says in this bottom white box, I win. If you would just throw your hand in the air, hey, we got a
You have
gift
it?
card.
You have the card?
We have a gift card in the back.
Show us the card,
Somebody-
man. Show us the card.
Somebody's going to run it out.
That's a winner right there. Okay, cool.
Hey, even if you're not a winner, if you're new around here, would you take a look at the card, fill it out, let us know you were here, and if it applies, would you check that box in the upper left-hand corner that says, I'm new around here? Every week at Brook Lake, we ask you to do that, and if you check that box letting us know you're new around here, we give $5 for every box checked to a local organization, making sure that kids in our community are not going hungry over the weekend when they don't have the free breakfast and lunch program at school. So check that box. Let us know you're new around here. You're already making a difference by doing that, helping feed kids. And we're able to do that because of your generosity.
Yeah, that's right. So you can continue to work on those cards kind of throughout the service as a response, and then drop them in what we call the box on your way out today. Yeah. You referenced generosity, and we always like to take a minute in each service and just say, Brook Lake's your home church, or you give of your tithe and offering here. Thank you for being generous people. It allows us to do everything that we do. We also wanted to acknowledge what is kind of going on in our state and in our country and in our world with the coronavirus, and just take a minute and kind of address that and some of the action plans that we have as a church. First and foremost, we don't really want to act out of a spirit of fear, but we do need to be wise in what we do. And so we're really taking a lot of our cues from those that are professionals in this field, the CDC, the King County Department of Health, even our local government here, City of Federal Way, the Federal Way Public School Systems. And so we're monitoring those resources so that we can be informed and make the best decisions that we can. Yeah. Some of those changes, because this is very new and things are, new information is coming all the time, that might result in us needing to reschedule some events or maybe even moving to an online service for a couple of weeks. We're not ready to make that decision yet, but I just wanted to let you guys know that is a possibility, because really the health and safety of you, and if you have kids, is of utmost importance to us. Yeah. So week in and week out, we're already doing some really best practices here at church. We're sanitizing toys. We're wiping down solid surfaces. Today, practically speaking, you might see some more hand sanitizers. You might see extra boxes of Kleenex. So if you have to cough, it's recommended that you cough into a Kleenex or sneeze. And then if you do, please wash your filthy hands for 20 seconds, please, with soap and water. We would recommend that. But really, we're not acting out of a spirit of fear, but we have to leverage wisdom here so that potentially we could slow or even prevent the coronavirus from spreading any more rapidly than it ought to. A couple other practical things you should be aware of. You might have noticed our greeters out there. They might not have given you a high five, a handshake, or if you know them, even a hug this Sunday. And we're probably going to continue that, just because it's wise to kind of limit physical contact in case you might be sick or somebody else might be sick. We've asked our staff to let their people know, hey, if you're sick, stay home. We'll cover for you. And so we're really taking those precautions. And then the last thing is, at the end of the service, we receive an offering, and we typically pass buckets across the aisles, and we thought that would sort of defeat the purpose. So one of our volunteers had a great suggestion to not do that. And we're going to just ask that if you came prepared to give, or maybe today you want to give online, but if you came physically prepared to give, just drop it in that same spot as the card, and that's called the box.
The box, and there's like 5 or 6 back there,
There's
right?
plenty
On your
of them,
way
yep.
out, you can't miss it. It says the box right on it. We have one more announcement for you. Anybody else excited that this month we're celebrating 50 years as a church family in this community?
That's old.
It's amazing. That's really old. No, 50 years of serving this community, loving Federal Way. So we're taking a whole month to celebrate. This last Friday, some of you were there. We went to Patterson's West, went to the skating rink, did a skate night, because our church used to meet at Patterson's West before we had a building. We've got another event coming up this Saturday that you'll hear more about from the stage in a little bit. I really want to put on your radar this event behind me, our 50-year anniversary dinner, happening towards the end of the month. This is a ticketed event at a venue in Tacoma. It's all catered. It's kind of an intimate space, so there's limited tickets available. We've already sold quite a few. I looked online this morning, and there's quite a bit sold. But there is still more. So if you want to buy tickets today, you can do that online or at Next Steps in the back there. I do recommend you get those tickets as soon as possible because you're going to want to be there for this kind of capstone event of our birthday celebration. I hope you'll join us.
Yeah, that's right. It's going to be a great time together. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for being generous people. If you've got your notes or you want to open up your Brook Lake app to get going, we're going to be diving into week 2 of our series that we're calling 50. But I want you to put your attention on the screen first.
There wasn't really anything thriving in Federal Way. And so we thought we'd just open a church. I had a little trailer. We had an organ we put in there, and we had hymn books, and pulled it into the parking lot of Thomas Jefferson. And I think the first Sunday there, 20 or 30 people. I mean, they were full of vim and vigor. You ask them to jump, they say, how high? They were ready to go.
I'm standing here in front of Thomas Jefferson High School, where 50 years ago, 39 people gathered in 1970 at what would become Brooklake Church. We've had 3 different names in our history, 5 different pastors, and met in 6 different locations. Can you believe that? In fact, one of the newspapers in those early years called us a church on the move. And honestly, really nothing's ever changed in our hearts and in our spirit. We just want to go where God is sending us and do what God has assigned to us. We still think of ourselves as a church on the move. We believe that God is not done in this region. He's not done in the 253, and He's certainly not done in your life and in our church.
I still realize that the potential that God has for us is beyond our imagination. If God's will is done in heaven, He said it could be done on earth. That's what Jesus told us. That's the strive of my heart. Still is.
That video never gets old. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you coming on out today, and welcome to everybody that's with us online. Before we jump into the message today, we're honored to have a couple guests that we want to acknowledge. One of the members of City Council, Mark Cobain, is right over here. Would you stand up, Mark, please? Thank you for joining us today. And every Sunday, thanks for joining us, Mark. Great to have you. And then we want to acknowledge and give special welcome, Brooklake welcome to our mayor of Federal Way, Jim Farrell. Would you please join me?
Thank you.
It's an honor to have you today, and it's great to participate with what the city is up to. We're a church in the city, of the city, for the city. We'll hear more about that. But thank you for your leadership. Just before you take the mic, thank you for all that you do. We know that leadership is complex. We know that there's a lot of people with a lot of different ideas. So thank you for helping us navigate our way forward to a prosperous city and a better future. Thank you. We appreciate all that you do. I heard you speak a couple weeks ago now at a citywide church. Churches came together for a worship and prayer night up at the Performing Arts Center. By the way, well done with that facility. That is beautiful. And I was just struck by your genuineness and authenticity as a person of faith. We're honored to have you here. Take a few moments.
Thank you, Pastor.
Meet everybody.
It was an amazing ceremony. How many people were there at the Performing Arts and Event Center? Did you guys get a chance to go? They just absolutely blew the roof off the place. It was absolutely amazing. Councilmember Kopang was in the front row. And, we have a capacity. It's a beautiful facility, and it's just really one of the great things in our city now. And it was packed, standing room only, of people with their arms raised and their hearts open, and the faith community really coming together. It was really, really amazing.
Yeah.
And really, the faith community in our city is so strong, and it's so important. I mean, I know, and I'm really excited about your anniversary. The City of Federal Way just is celebrating its 30-year anniversary. You guys are 20 years older than the city, And because, and it's a great reminder that our faith is eternal, our God is eternal,
yep.
and so is the fellowship that we have with each other, and it is so strong in this community. I just want to say that over the years, Brooklake has been such a wonderful partner, and so giving, and so willing to stand up, from the diapers and the diaper drives and the volunteer work and the fences that are painted, but the turkeys that you do at Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I want to tell you guys about a real success story that it came together in the past year. Exactly a year ago, I had, Pastor Harris and a number of people, all of the faith-based leaders in our community gathered together to talk about making sure that when there's severe weather, cold, that threatens the lives of our neighbors and the less fortunate, we gathered together all those people, came with a plan. And Brook Lake, at the end, when the cold weather, when the thermometer finally dropped, Brook Lake was one of the 3 churches there to make sure, for the first time in the city's history, that we had a place to bring people out of the cold and to help them. And I just want to say a special thank you so much for that. And while we're here on a 50-year anniversary, we're looking forward. The city of Federal Way is looking forward to the next 50. And on behalf of a grateful community, I say thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mayor, for being with us all morning long. Well, you have a family, you have a church. Thank you for taking a Sunday morning to be with us. We appreciate it so much. And by the way, slip out. Don't stay for another message. It's going to be the same one. So please feel free. Hey, open up your notes if you didn't already, and your app. The notes are in there if you're viewing online as well. Today is week 2 of a series that we're entitled 50, because that's just the way we are around here. We're pretty simple about how we title things. The card, the box, 50. Today's message is entitled, Love is the Deep End. Love is the deep end. Turn to somebody without touching them or getting too close and say, love is the deep end. Like you, I've had several people in my life that have shaped who I am and who I have become, speaking into my life, saying things, but most importantly, spending time with me. That some of the formative things that people that you become can only happen as people have spent time with you. So one of those individuals in my life was my grandfather, my mother's father. And we affectionately called him Papa. I've talked about him before, and he was Papa to so many cousins and grandchildren that he had. But he was Papa to so many others as well. My wife was just talking about him, Michelle, the other day, and just talking about how as she was coming into the family, he was so welcoming and warm. And his love for me shaped who I am and who I was becoming as a kid. I remember one time we were on a road trip, him and I, and we set out from the Bay Area of California to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma, just a day trip, just not too long of a drive. It was a multi-day trip, and we're riding, he had at the time, it was like a 1979 Lincoln Mark 5, and we affectionately called it Titanic. It was so big, and it floated down the freeway, just one of those kinds of cars. Some of you might remember those cars. And so before the seatbelt laws, and I was, the only passenger with my papa, and I found myself pulling down the armrests in the middle and climbing over so I could be right next to him or so that I could see out the front window, and there we went down the road. And at some point in time, I must have looked over at him and saw that he had the coolest sunglasses I have ever seen as a 7-year-old. And I was quite into sunglasses, apparently, but I didn't have any with me, and I said, hey, Papa, I'd like to, maybe we could get some sunglasses. And so quite literally, we stopped at maybe 10, maybe a dozen truck stops along the way to find the pair of sunglasses that looked closest like him. Now, he didn't have to do that. He could have said, let's wait until we get there. But it's those kinds of actions that shaped who I have become and how I view my relationship to my grandfather, who filled a male role in my life that I very much needed. But I want to talk to you today about how that transference happens in our life. That love is both the shallow end and the deep end. That love is both formative in who we are becoming, but it is also the pathway of how we become that person. It is both formative and it is the destination. It's formative in the sense that as we give and receive love, God does something in us and changes us and makes us into the person He wants us to be. But we never graduate from love. We never move on from love. Love is the point. Love is the point. One time, Jesus was given a teaching, and he said something that at first glance is a little confusing. And I want to read from Matthew chapter 5, verses 23 and 24. It says this, "So, if you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple, and you suddenly remember that someone has something against you, leave your sacrifice there at the altar, go and be reconciled to that person, then come and offer your sacrifice to God." I remember a time as a kid, this just sticks out in my memory. I was in a church service and we were passing communion, and the pastor said, before anybody takes communion, if anybody has anything against anybody else in this room, I want you to get up from where you're at right now and go make it right with that person. And I just remember thinking, this is awesome. I get to see who's been fighting with each other in this moment right now, right? And I think a lot of us, and there is an application to the scripture in that way, but that's so much deeper than just that kind of action on our part. You see, the temple was different than the church service. Very different. The temple was a place very formal. You would bring your family, you would bring a sacrifice that you would have to pay really good money for. And if you didn't have that sacrifice with you, you could purchase a sacrifice there. And Jesus got really upset one time with people that were selling sacrifices, and they were overcharging for them for people that didn't have the sacrifice when they arrived, and they were taken advantage of. That's the time that Jesus went home and created a whip. That was awesome. That's the Jesus you serve. Got a little angry in the moment. But the temple was a place that you would walk sometimes days to get to. You would pack up lunch and dinner and breakfast. You would pack your family. You'd carry a cage with a bird or something, and you would be on your way to the temple. A multi-day journey. Took you a while to get there. By the time you got there, you're tired, you're exhausted, you're hungry. You've been on this road trip by walking for days. You have your kids. You're like, finally, we get to someplace. Kids, go play. I'm done. Go get on your iPad right now. Just go get on the device, right? You're that kind of exhausted. And you're at the temple, and you finally wait your turn, and you're leaving your sacrifice, and you remember that you did something to somebody else that caused an offense in that relationship. Jesus is pointing to that reality. You remember that somebody is rightly offended by you. You did something to hinder that relationship. And Jesus is instructing you in that moment to leave your sacrifice. What, are you kidding, Jesus? You realize how many days it took us to get here? Like, this wasn't a 7-minute trip to Brook Lake Church in the morning. This is a multi-day thing, right? Are you really saying, Jesus, that you want me to put my worship aside of you in order to go tend to a relationship over here? In other words, if I could say it this way, did Jesus really just teach that horizontal love is a priority over vertical love? The answer to that question is yes. That's what he said. And that's what he meant. In other words, the love that we have for horizontal relationships is how we live out, or how we express our love to God. Even in our giving, even in our participation in the church, even when we gather to worship, we often think in our Western kind of consumer mindset that it's just between me and God. I come, I sing these songs to him, I give my offering to him, and we lose sight that everything we do here is corporate, is community. It's for the benefit of others, of those that are even gathering around us, singing, hearing voices, being inspired, giving so that we can be a church on a mission in this city to make a difference in this place. And everywhere Jesus went, he would give these kinds of teachings that caused everybody to just step back and just almost trip over the words that Jesus just said. And to contribute to that, Jesus was constantly being challenged by the religious community, people known as the Pharisees and the Sadducees, two different groups of people. And at one time, this happens that Jesus was attempting to be trapped by them. And so they were always asking these religious/legal questions. Because for them, for the Jewish people, the religious system and the legal system was all tied together. You don't have to read far into the Old Testament before you realize that that's true of the Hebrew people and the nation of Israel. And one time in Matthew chapter 22, here's what it says. But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, I love how Matthew says it there, he silenced the Sadducees with his reply. They met together, that is the Pharisees, to question him again. One of them, an expert in religious law, tried to trap him with this question. Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses? Jesus replied, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. A second is, what's those two words? Say that out loud together. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments. This is the first time in recorded history that these two commandments are combined. One comes from Deuteronomy, the other comes from Leviticus, and Jesus is the one that takes both of them and he puts them together. He mashes them together. Another translation would say the second is like the first. The NLT says it's equally important. Equally important. Now, if you were to ask a Jewish first century person, if you were to say, hey, what's the most important commandment? They would say, love the Lord your God. They would say the first one. And then if you ask them, hey, how do you do that? How do you love the Lord your God with all of your heart? Then they would say, their response would be, we are to obey God and keep his commandments. And that may have been what the Pharisees were expecting Jesus to say, but he didn't say that. He said, love others in place of keep the commands. I think this is paramount because I kind of grew up, I know I grew up not far from the gospel truth, but mixed in with this was also sin management. Was also like not doing this, just, like not going to an R-rated movie. Like I couldn't even go see Schindler's List. I grew up in that era because that was, to be that, to go there, to do that, that was like, one of the common questions I would ask my youth pastor is, hey, how far can you go and be okay? And I wanted to know, I didn't want to sin, but I didn't want to miss out. Come on, don't look so pious at me like that. Come on. How many others are you with me? You get it, right? Yeah. And see, that's what we want. We want if you're going to love God, then we want a list of commandments, and they all have their place. And Jesus just cut through it all, and he says, love is the pathway. It's not just the pathway, it is the destination. It is the point. Which one is greatest? Love God, love others. Which one is more important? Yes. How many of you have kids? Which one is the greatest? That's the best I can do to make us understand what Jesus is saying here. They're all important. They're all the greatest. But no, we want which one is the priority. Jesus says, yep, both equally important. The second is like the first. And then Jesus takes it further. That's what Jesus is always doing, especially when he's talking about the virtue and the ethic of love. And he says in John 13, 34 through 35, he says, so now I am giving you a new commandment. Everybody say new commandment. Let's push pause right there for a moment and let me ask you the question, who can rightly announce a new commandment? God. God, that's the right answer. God is the one that can announce a new commandment. So what was Jesus saying here? Well, he said a lot here, but what was he saying but not saying? I am God. That's what Jesus is saying. Now, let's move on. He says that what's the new commandment? Love each other. And he says something different that appears here for the first time. He says, just as I have loved you, you should love each other. In other words, not the way you want to be loved, not love others the way you want to be loved. That's the golden rule. Jesus takes it up a notch. I don't know what we call it. The platinum rule, the supreme rule. I don't know what it is, but Jesus says, just as I have loved you, you should love one another. And let me pause right there for a moment and give us a little insight. When we hear that, rightly so, we look back and we ask ourselves the question, how has Jesus loved me? And for a lot of us in the church, our mind immediately goes to the cross. And as it should. Jesus went to the cross. What did he endure on the way to the cross? Torture. We're going to celebrate that in just a couple of weeks as Palm Sunday is coming our way. Incredible abuse, torture. Then he dies on the cross, the Roman way to execute the worst of the worst. It was the most abusive and way to just torment an individual, a human being. So most of us, rightly so, when we hear how did Jesus love us, we look back and we think that, but that's not what they thought. The disciples that are gathered around Jesus, they had no frame of reference for where Jesus was headed. He was hinting at it along the way, but they didn't expect him to die by a Roman cross. When that actually happened, they're like, this can't be true. They scattered. They didn't expect it to happen. What did they hear? Maybe, and we don't know, but what could have heard when Jesus says, just as I have loved you? Well, maybe Matthew heard, man, before Jesus, I was a tax collector. I basically was the scum of the earth. Nobody liked me. Everybody hated me, and rightly so. I ripped them off. I didn't just collect taxes for the Roman government, but I lined my own pockets. That's why when you read the New Testament, it happens all the time in the scriptures that when they're referring to sinners, oftentimes they say things like prostitutes and tax collectors. They hated tax collectors. And maybe Matthew, when he heard this idea that Jesus was saying for the first time that there is a new commandment, oh my goodness, only God can give a new commandment. So Jesus, I think I'm tracking with you. I think you're announcing something. You're God. I'm giving you a new commandment. These Jewish boys, really, we call disciples, but they're really kind of teenagers. They grew up in a religious system of becoming or following a rabbi, and every single disciple that we have record of that Jesus invited to follow him did not make the cut. Somewhere along their journey, they had to bail on this whole rabbinical system, and they went back to daddy's business, fishing, whatever it might have been. That was Peter's story. Maybe he heard, I wanted to be a good Jewish person my whole life. And for whatever reason, I was a screw up, or I didn't have enough discipline, or whatever the case is, but I didn't make the cut. And maybe in his mind, the common narrative or story that he battled was when the rabbi said to him, I'm sorry, Peter, you've got to go. You can't follow me. You didn't make the cut. And so he went back to daddy's business, and along the way, this new rabbi's walking along the road, and he looks over to Peter and he says, follow me. And Peter's like, me? Maybe that's what Peter heard when Jesus is announcing this new commandment, that you are to love others the way that I have loved you. This radical invitation to be a part and in proximity to the God of the universe, the Messiah, who they were becoming more aware as each miracle transpired. They were becoming more aware, oh my goodness, there's something unearthly about this rabbi that we are following. And now he's declaring that we are to have a different kind of ethic. Now he's declaring, and I want you to hear this, and we'll put it up on the screen. Love for God is demonstrated and authenticated by loving others. That's how we love God as followers of Jesus, as Christians. We love God by loving other people. 2 Sundays ago, I was talking about something, and I who knows what I was talking about? I never know what I'm talking about. But 2 Sundays ago, I was talking about making cookies or baking cookies, and I forgot a critical ingredient, and they just came out horrible. I don't know if how many of you remember that story. Don't raise your hand, because none of you will remember, and it'll make me feel bad. But somebody came up to me and said, hey, I've got the best cookie recipe ever, and what's your favorite? I said, chocolate chip, of course. Like, who else likes anything other than chocolate chip? And so she says, I got the best recipe ever for chocolate chip cookies. And I said to her, prove it. And she did. Last Sunday, she brought me, I'm not sure if they were of God or of the devil. Depends on, because each cookie was like several hundred calories. They were the best chocolate chip cookies. Would you agree, Michelle? The absolute best. And I'm kind of expecting a monthly, I don't know, anything. Share the love. I said to her, hey, prove it. And sure enough, she obviously did. And Jesus says in verse 35, your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. In other words, talk is cheap. Love is what it's about. And so we all have our individual ways that we are to live this out. People we're thinking of right now that we've not either been loving toward or we've offended or whatever it is that the Holy Spirit's doing in your life as we respond to this. But 50 is all about us kind of looking back and then looking forward. And so I want to talk for the rest of our time together about where we're headed as a church family to love this city well. And in order to help me do that, I want to have you welcome Cambria Florence to come on up here. She's our outreach director, no stranger. You guys know her. And one of the things that we're passionate about is serving our city, and Cambria provides all the leadership for that, to mobilize as many people as possible to give of their time and finances to serve well. And even the mayor acknowledged that today. So well done in your leadership.
Thank you.
I want to read you another scripture, just a verse, the first part. It says this, if God is for us, who can ever be against us? And because of time, I'm not going to read the rest. If God is for us, who can ever be against us? I think there's a narrative out there where many people outside the church, any church, Brooklake or any other church, there's a story that they believe that the church people are, and them, they're at odds with each other. And we're against a bunch of things. And there's a few things on the list that church people should be against. We don't have to even start down that list. But we want to rewrite the narrative. We want our city, the 253, to know what we're for. Because we want to follow God's lead. God is for us. And He's for our city. Yeah. And so we have this ambition to reboot some vision for us. And so, Cambria, tell us a little about where we've been and what's to come.
Yeah, so you guys have been a part of many Second Saturdays. Pastor Nathan started this, I think, about 10 years ago, where every single second Saturday of the month we gather together as a church. Anyone can come out. We plan an outreach where we go serve our city. Lance and Gina took incredible leadership of that for a season. And we are kind of relaunching Second Saturday, and we're going to be calling it For 253. We want to be for the 253. We are going to be gathering same once a month, serving our city, and we have some pretty big vision and ideas for it.
Absolutely. We're grateful for the leadership where we've gone
Yeah.
up to this point, where we've come up to this point. And as Cambria said, we want to reboot it. We want to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
And when people think about Brooklake, or when they think about church people, we want the first thing they hear about is what we have done to give back to the city.
Totally.
What we've done to give back to the 253. So we have a couple ambitious goals. In the sense of our monthly rhythm, nothing's really going to change. We're still going to gather monthly most of the time on the second Saturday,
Yeah.
but because we're not going to call it second Saturday anymore.
Could be the first.
It could be the first.
Could be the third.
Yeah, amazing. See how we did that? We have a couple big goals that we wanted to share with you. A couple visions that will help guide us into the future. Number one is our participation goal.
Yeah, we have a big goal that we would have 10% of Brooklake show up every single month. And as Brooklake grows, that number would grow. So
Yeah.
right now, that's about 50 to 75 people showing up every single month to serve our city, to gather together. That's a big dent that we
Yeah.
could make in the 253 area.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. And that's one of the ways that we're going to gauge how we're doing, how is that successful,
Yep.
that people are taking those first steps to be mobilized to give back and serve.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we've already talked, Michelle and our Wang, we're going to be a part of that.
I love that.
We're going to be a part of that. And every time we do an event, there's going to be something that's kid-friendly
Yep, every single time.
to bring them to. I need that for my soul. I'm dead serious. I need a regular way that I can join with people that I love, and together we can give back.
Yeah, that's
Because
good.
every time I do that, I leave feeling closer to God. Why? Because love is both the pathway and the destination.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to commit to that. We're committing to that. And the second thing we're really excited about is something we're calling
The $5 Club. I'll let you take this one.
the $5 Club. Okay, on the website right now, you can go and you can sign up to give $5 a month. That's it. You can't give $6, $5 a month. Over and above our normal giving, $5, the $5 Club, every dollar that comes in this fund will then be given back to whatever project we're doing that month.
Yeah, so Brooklake is going to cover all of the costs of whatever we do, whatever it costs to go and serve that organization, that family, we're going to cover those costs. So 100% of $5 Club can just be given directly to that organization or that family. When we show up, we can say, hey, we want to write you a check just to bless you on top of serving and being with you for that Saturday.
I don't know about you, but I'm fired up about that.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be super, super fun
Yeah,
to surprise
it's going to be
people.
so incredible. We're going to do things like partner with organizations. We're also going to do things like partner with a single mom who might need her deck something. I don't know those words.
Repaired, rebuilt, whatever.
I'm not a handyman.
Me neither.
Something with tools. And we could just give her a check instead of having the money go towards all the tools that we were using.
We're hoping that this becomes a story that is told in our community, not because we want anything, accolades or whatever, but so that more and more people of faith or not of faith can join the 4253 movement. And they can begin to sign up to give $5. And what if over time there were 1,000 people signed up to give $5 a month?
So cool.
What kind of difference could we make, not only mobilizing with our participation, but with our finances and blessing and giving back our city? Ultimately, we want people to go, there's something about them. I'm not sure I believe everything they believe, but I can't deny that they're living this love thing in ways that's generous. And so I'm super, super excited.
Sorry.
Yeah.
How cool would it be if we had people show up who weren't a part of Brooklake, or who were a part of different churches, or who didn't even really know who Jesus was? And one of our goals is that at 4253, you could belong before you believe.
Yeah.
So going into this with that mindset, I'm really excited to see who comes out.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, a couple ways people can respond today to join the 4253 movement. Number one, show up this Saturday. We've got a couple things going on this Saturday.
Yeah, so all of these diapers and wipes up here that you guys have generously bought and brought to Brook Lake, we're gonna go serve 2 of the locations that are actually receiving these diapers. So come out 9 a.m., show up at Brook Lake, and we will disperse from there.
Awesome. Secondly, join the $5 Club. As I mentioned earlier, you can go online, go on the website right now. There's a drop-down tab, $5 a month. Sign up for that recurring giving. And then number 3, talk to Cambria. For many of you, some of you, talk to Cambria about possibly joining the leadership team of this particular ministry.
Yeah, so I'm looking for people who maybe have event coordinating in their background or event planning or day of coordinating. If that is something that you know how to do and you're passionate about and you want to give some of your time, I'd love to have you on this team.
Cambria, thank you. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
your leadership.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks in advance for all the great things we're going to be doing. Love you. Well, I know that we want to be the kind of people and the kind of church that's known for love. And I believe as good as the days have been leading up to today, and we do stand on the broadest shoulders in terms of those that have gone before us and paved the way, and we honor the past, but I want to call us to a new level of impact and commitment for the next season that God has for us. In a moment, we're going to pray, we're going to sing, we're going to give. But right before that, let me leave us with some other practical next steps today. Number 1, go public with your commitment to Jesus and be baptized on March 29th. If you've chosen to follow Jesus and you've not yet been baptized, baptized is the way that God invites us to go public with a personal, private decision. We need to be doing that. Number 2, receive prayer. During our final song, there will be people up here that want to connect with you and pray for you and over you. Please come forward and receive prayer for whatever it is that's going on in your life. And then number 3, join the 4253 movement. I already mentioned how you can do that. And number 4, worship through giving. And as we mentioned earlier, we're not passing the buckets during the song. You can give on your way out or you can give online. Let's stand to our feet. Let's sing with our whole hearts, with our full voices, and I'll be back to dismiss with our benediction.
Your love is devoted, like a ring of solid gold, like a vow that is tested, like a covenant to hold. Your love is enduring through the winter rain and beyond the horizon. Mercy for today. Faithful you have been, faithful you will be. Pledge yourself to me, and it's why I sing your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Ooh, ooh, ooh. You father the orphan, and your kindness makes us whole. You shoulder a weak man, and you strength becomes our own. You're making me like you, clothing me in white, bringing beauty from my shame. For you will have your bride. Faithful you have been, faithful you will be. You pledge yourself to me, and it's why I sing your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. You will be praised, you will be praised. Angels and saints we sing worthy are you, Lord. You will be praised, oh, you will be praised. Angels and saints we sing worthy are you, Lord. And it's why I sing your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips.
Right before I leave you with our benediction, I wanted to express an invitation to lunch today for those that have not attended step 1 of Growth Track. And you want to hear more about God's plan and purposes for your life and how loved you are and how we as a church want to serve you, we invite you to come on out. Childcare provided and lunch is provided right after we dismiss. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. And may the Lord show you his favor and give you his peace. Love you all. Have a great day. Have a good week. We'll see you next